I don't bite. People could come up front. I don't even bark that much. I'm starting to take it personally. Errol is brave enough. He's been here long enough to know.
I was not. You remember me?
I know you were not here yesterday, and we had some good news about Bosnia paying. All right. No, thank you. Thank them. Change. All right, good afternoon. Starting with Syria, our humanitarian colleagues say that civilians remain in harm's way as hostilities are continuing in Idlib and Aleppo. Reports from the ground indicate that thousands of civilians are on the move from around the M5 highway, with most people moving further north and northwest towards the Turkey-Syria border. Inclement weather, including snowfall, is exacerbating the situation, both for civilians on the move and for those who remain in unfinished buildings and camp settings. The UN and our humanitarian partners are continuing to scale up operations on the ground to respond to the needs of civilians, including by providing food, shelter, and other forms of essential assistance. And just an update on the COVID-19 outbreak. A two-day forum of health experts from around the world has concluded yesterday, the World Health Organization in Geneva. The participants agreed on a set of global research priorities. They also outlined mechanisms for continuing scientific interaction and collaborations coordinated and facilitated by WHO. They worked with local research funders to determine how necessary resources can be mobilized so that critical research can start immediately. This outbreak is a test of solidarity, political, financial, and scientific, said Dr. Tedros, the Director General of World Health Organization. And also today, WHO said that COVID-19 advanced teams and their Chinese counterparts have now finalized the scope of work and design for the mission. They expect the rest of the international team to start to arrive in China over the weekend. And the UN mission in the Central African Republic says it has taken steps to assist the country as it prepares for presidential and legislative elections scheduled to take place late this year and early next year. 34 electoral advisors have now joined the UN mission to provide support with security, operations, and logistics, particularly to facilitate access to remote areas and by coordinating international electoral assistance. The electoral advisors will be deployed in Bangui and in the 16 prefectures to support the National Election Authority. Other deployments will follow in the next months. And as we mentioned earlier this week, that the World Health Organization's Emergency Committee on Ebola was scheduled to meet in Geneva. The committee concluded that the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo still constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. The committee revised the outbreak's risk assessment. It is high at national and regional levels, but low at the global level. The committee was concerned that by withdrawing the emergency status of the outbreak, it might have adverse consequences for the response efforts. They said the country continues to need support to combat infectious diseases as well as to strengthen its health system. Dr. Tedros will be in the Democratic Republic of the Congo today, where he's scheduled to meet with the president of the country and other senior ministers to discuss how to support and strengthen the country's health system. Between the 3rd and 9th of February, there were only 3 new confirmed cases reported in the Beni Health Zone. And in a tweet, Dr. Tedros said the latest developments are very positive. He added that he hopes that by the time the emergency committee reconvenes, they will be able to declare an end to the Ebola outbreak in the DRC. Staying on the DRC, Leila Zerougi, the head of the UN mission in that country, was in the Kasai region this week, where she invited the local population to, quote, turn the page on conflict and to work together for the return of stability in order to stimulate development, end quote. In the past few years, this region has been deeply affected by internal communal conflict. Since then, the UN has increased its efforts to promote reconciliation and to help restore state authority. In addition to meetings with local officials and community members, Ms. Zerougi also visited a center that houses former child soldiers and works to reunite them with families and reintegrate them into society. She stressed the need to support community reintegration for children and adults formerly associated with armed groups. And back here, the Security Council is holding an open debate on transitional justice in conflict and post-conflict situations. Briefing members from Geneva, Michelle Bachelet, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, said that lasting peace is interlinked with justice, development, and respect for human rights. Transitional justice processes, she added, have repeatedly shown they can help to address grievances and divisions. And yesterday afternoon, you will have seen that the Security Council adopted a resolution that welcomed the brilliant conference and commitment of the participants to refrain from interference in the armed conflict or in Libya's internal affairs. And today is, what day is today? Besides Thursday. And besides being the day before Valentine's Day. Hear me now, it is World Radio Day, marked this year under the theme of diversity, both in the newsroom and on the airwaves. In his message, the Secretary General said that in an era of rapid media evolution, radio retains a special place in every community as an accessible source of vital news and information. Radio brings together people, he added. As such, radio has a key role to play as we strive to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and tackle our climate crisis. And on World Radio Day, the Secretary General concluded, let us recognize the enduring power of radio to promote diversity and help build a more peaceful and inclusive world. And today we say thank you to our friends in Thailand and in the United Arab Emirates. They have both paid their budget dues in full, which brings us up to... What'd you say? No, it's okay. All right. Be open. It's okay.
56.
No, all right. You're closer to some if you have a question. It was 48 was the right answer.
Thank you. There was the news about regarding Libya not allowing UN flights there, or could you confirm or say something about it?
I mean, I expressed our concern yesterday. My understanding from the mission is that discussions are ongoing. Certain flights are being allowed in. What is important for us is that we receive all the normal clearances so we can operate safely for our staff.
So just to clarify, did this that started actually before the Security Council adopted their resolution?
Yes, because we talked about it yesterday before the resolution.
In the morning. Yeah. And then so my question is if it continued also later. So you are saying there are still some
I'm not
flights.
sure that it's clearly linked. I'm saying our colleagues on the ground are trying to work out with the various parties to make sure we have all the deconfliction information and the right clearances. Errol.
Yes, thank you, Steph. Regarding Syria, Idlib, obviously this situation somehow is not going better, but from bad to worse, as reports say. What does the Secretary General really has to say, beside that there is no military solution and there is only political solution? What kind of...
Well, I mean, I think, that's a very important message to put forward. This is a message that continues to be passed on privately and publicly, the context we have at all sorts of different levels. And our focus also is very much on the people, right? On trying to get humanitarian aid through either the cross-border, and we've updated you regularly on those critical operations we get aid through the border with Turkey. And for all those who are directly involved in the fighting, who have influence on those in the fighting, to halt that fighting and to give people a chance to live and get the humanitarian aid they need.
Just one more broad, actually. Does the Secretary General thinks or see where should be the situation for the R2P responsibility to protect to be activated today?
Look, that's an activation that needs to be done by member states. Our focus is on trying to do whatever we can to find an immediate stop to the fighting.
Is R2P dead?
I will leave that to the academics. Sir. Oh, sorry, I thought you were holding a microphone. Madame, who just came in.
A quick question. The President of Congress of El Salvador said yesterday that the UN will mediate negotiations between Congress and the president of El Salvador after the impasse over the weekend where the military came into Congress. Is any confirmation from the United Nations in terms of that?
Well, first of all, I would say that we are concerned by the tensions that we're seeing in El Salvador between the branches of the state in the country, and it's important that authorities resolve their differences through dialogue and within the existing legal framework. As to the good offices, we very much hope and trust that these issues will be addressed through national institutional mechanism and within the legal framework of El Salvador. The UN has supported the strengthening of democracy in El Salvador since the signing of the peace agreement in '92, and we stand ready to support Salvadorans in their efforts to build a peaceful and prosperous country in full respect of democratic principles. Yep.
The publication of the list of private companies operating in occupied territories, that has produced a statement of outrage from the U.S., from Pompeo, the Secretary of State from the U.S. What was the process by which, this is a remedial question, but what was the process by which that list came to be published historically and more recently as well within the Human Rights Agency of the UN?
Sure. I think, first of all, it's important to understand that the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, acted on a mandate given to her office by the Human Rights Council back in 2016. It is her responsibility to act upon mandates given to her by the member states who sit on the Human Rights Council. It's not as if she had, a mandate is given by member states. It's not as if she had an option not to fulfill that mandate. So the initial resolution was passed in 2016. The work has been done since then. I mean, I think on the details of the work, I would refer you to press releases put out by the High Commissioner's office. You can contact my colleagues in Geneva who can tell you about how the work was done. There have been different reactions to the list, and I think it's perfectly legitimate to have, for various member states, to have opinions on the report and on the mandate given by the High Commissioner by the Human Rights Council. Mesdames et messieurs, hasta mañana.